Number 15, Stars and Stripes, baby. He's ready.
What if you found a Rocky who played soccer?
I knew the biggest barrier to entry with Jay would be being American. So I know what our mentality is like in this country.
We thought Jay was crazy going to England.
What if an unheralded American tried to fight his way into big-time English football?
When I first came to Europe, I think I had about $1,800. And I used to pretend like these were players. So I used to kind of take the ball and I would and then I'd kick around it.
Everyone was talking about a couple of forwards we had, and I said, who's the centre half?
It is a match worth millions of pounds for a place in the Premiership.
What if he stood one step away from the promised land?
Ashley Young delivers.
Welcome to a special edition of the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason Davis and Jared Dubois, and we're joined by a very special guest, U.S. International Vancouver Whitecap defender Jay Demerit's on the line. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing well, thanks, guys. How are you?
Not bad, and you've got a pretty big event coming up this next week, the debut of the Jay Demerit story, Rise and Shine, the Jay Demerit story, out in theaters all over the country. Talk a little bit about the movie and about the big day and where people can find it if they're not aware of it yet.
Sure. Yeah, it's it's surprisingly turning into a big day. Funny enough, again when I got approached about the project a few years ago, it actually is a few years ago almost now. It was about 6 months before the World Cup had started, and Nick and Ronco, the producers of the film, approached me with the idea of sending a camera crew to the World Cup, obviously knowing that the documentation of that event would be a huge part to the story. And I'd known those guys for years, and they've always been receptive to the soccer story that I have, and that's how the idea was spawned. And sure enough, after many sweats and hours and emails and campaigns and Kickstarters and all these other things, here we are, and we're in a very amazing position, and that's going to theaters, which is starting again on November 3rd. And I believe you can find out where your screenings are on jaydemeritstory.com, which will have a huge list of all the theaters all across America. I think there's 140 that are running it and are going to do it for that week from the 3rd to the 10th. So find your screening in between there, and hopefully you'll like what you see.
I was looking at the California list because I live here in Southern California. I was very pleased to see that there's 3 theaters within 20 minutes of me that I could take my choice of seeing. So even if you think that you're somewhere in the country, maybe you can't find it, go to jaydemeritstory.com. They have a really good list organized by state. You can find out where your local theater is and take part in it. But Jay, let's kind of start from the beginning a little bit here. I want to ask you a little bit about, in case people don't know, obviously to those of us that have been following your story, you're from Green Bay, Wisconsin. One of the football cities of America. Now, growing up, what was it like? Because being here in Southern California, I've kind of had to defend soccer growing up, and I don't find myself having to do it nearly as much anymore because the culture here has kind of accepted it in Southern California. Growing up in Green Bay, what was it like being the soccer guy growing up? And did you always have to defend the sport? And is it any different now, like a decade later, and with your success?
I suppose a little bit of both. I think all of us when we were kids, had to defend the sport a little bit more than you do now, just based on sheer numbers. And not only that, but now there's legitimate leagues and legitimate professionals that have gone on and done good things. So I think that helps a little bit and makes the road a little bit easier now. But I guess growing up in Green Bay, I didn't have to defend it as much because I wasn't just playing soccer. I wasn't just the soccer guy. For me, I did play football till I was 16. I played basketball all the way through till college, and also track and field. So I wasn't really a soccer specialist until about midway through my college career is when I decided that soccer was a sport for me that I would try to, go on and play further. So I didn't have to fight as much as probably some other guys did that were soccer purists. But coming from Green Bay, again, you have to learn how to be an athlete, I suppose, before you learn how to be a soccer player. And I was no different. I grew up, again, in Green Bay, a fantastic football town. I was a huge Fat Packer fan, still am. But either way, taking nothing away, I think those attributes you learn growing up in a blue-collar place like Green Bay, you can transform that into anything athletically, and as far as the mental attitude or the people that will support you. And I think I've been very lucky in the fact that I'm from Green Bay, because those things have definitely been attributes that have helped me get to where I am.
You're talking about playing multiple sports, and that's the American story. We all play a bunch of things, and then eventually we pick one, and we get to a point where we're not good enough anymore, and we stop. And you played them all until, like you said, at least until college, and then specialized in soccer. Do you think, and I don't think that you would trade your experiences, but do you think your path would have been easier to get where you are today, where you played in the World Cup and you played in the Premiership, if you had specialized at, like, say, 10 instead of 17?
Well, to be honest, I'm quite an advocate for the athletic route. Even in my own experiences, you see kids that start to get burned out now because they've been going to soccer tournaments, driving 4 hours one way just to get there, and then they play. And by the time they're 19 or 20, yes, they probably are better as a 20-year-old as a soccer player. But are they going to have that kind of career? I don't know. I understand both routes to get there, to get to that final stage of professional soccer. But I guess I'm pretty proud of the way that I did it, and I know that when I got there, and once I had to go through that kind of struggle and that drive to really learn the sport and become a pro in it, being a good athlete really helped me kind of jump a lot of those hurdles that maybe I would have struggled with or been burnt out by the time I was 23. So I like the way that I did it, and I wouldn't change the way my path.
Jay, watching the movie, there's an interesting kind of theme a couple times that comes up, and it's just kind of shocking that the I don't want to say stroke of luck, but the stroke of fortune that would come your way at times. And one of them being that there seems to be this theme of sight unseen. Like, it sounds like the college UIC took you on from your high school coach's recommendation because he was so respected, sight unseen, and then you get a write up from a ex-Arsenal Fulham scout, sight unseen, because your buddy Kieran seems to know the guy. How is it fortune? Is it luck? Is it just reputation? I mean, it's an amazing thing that it's one more thing that makes your story that much more enthralling to watch, is that just these things come your way and everything just works out in the end. It's just like a Hollywood story, but real life.
Yeah, it is. It was pretty amazing in the fact that things do work out, but I think you have to be able to navigate, I suppose, your opportunities and your challenges in the right way in order to do that. And I think that's maybe the secret that I was able to find, or that, that path of struggle. You got to take detours along the way, but ultimately, if you're moving in the right direction, you'll get there in the end. And I think that was just me. You go and you wait for that person that you meet that can help you out that little bit more. Say, for instance, Henry, like you said in the movie, I meet the guy that used to scout for Fulham and Arsenal. He could have been some other guy down the road if I knew what I was looking for. And I suppose navigating those types of trials, and again, going to UIC as a freshman in college and about to be redshirted as a forward, to know that I had a chance to be on the field if I wanted to be converted into a defender, and to be open to that idea and kind of compass that way to me becoming actually a better move and a better defender than I ever would have been playing up front. So I think it's about being open to ideas, and I think it's about, again, navigating your right path that you feel most comfortable with, and kind of let your instincts follow, and follow your instincts. And I think that's been a huge attribute for me as well moving forward.
To follow up on that real quick, Jay, Jason and I have had a conversation before about how it seems so many of the great American central defenders are converted from another position, where it doesn't always seem like we're bringing them up that way. I know I personally played against Carlos Bocanegra out here growing up. He was a great offensive player in high school. Yourself being converted from a forward, I think Omar Gonzalez is the same way. Jonathan Spector went to Manchester United as a striker. What does it say about the American system? Do we need to start somehow finding that position earlier in life? Or is this a natural progression that kind of happens all over the world?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, again, like we had touched on earlier, we grow up as athletes, and, the best athlete when we're young scores goals, and he's the one that does that stuff,
Yeah.
And then I think as we get older and more refined as athletes and as soccer players, or any athlete in general in the sport they play, you find what your specialty is. And for me, I talk about it in the film a lot, about how I used to play basketball, and I used to kind of learn a lot of defensive skills because that was my job on the basketball court, was to defend their best forward. And how when I decided to be converted into a defender in college on a soccer field, those types of principles were just so easy for me to kind of hit the ground running with on a soccer field that, maybe I, again, was able to do that quicker and find that specialty niche of being a good defender. And I think, those types of things have a lot to do with it.
In the movie, there's, obviously a lot of the story is you and Kieran trying to get trials all over Europe, not just England. And there's a lot of talk about you being American. And I know you've talked about this before, and I'm curious about how it's changed. But the fact that you were American, how much of how much do you think it held you back or kept you from getting the contract that you obviously ultimately got? I mean, what was the delay there? Did it set you back by a couple years, or was it just kind of like you had to try harder and eventually it was going to happen anyway?
Well, hopefully I just had to try harder, but it definitely comes with a stigma. Over in Europe especially, you have I don't think there's much of it anymore because of the Americans that have gone over and had success. I was kind of in the middle of the pack. You have your originals like the McBrides and the Friedels and those kind of guys that have gone and kind of paved the way, the Harkses and those types of players. So it wasn't that abnormal, but you still got the whole kind of American, huh? Well, what are you doing over here? And you got to be able to shed those types of comments and those types of ideas away. And ultimately, it's your performance on the field. They don't care where you're from. At the end of it, if you're the guy in the field that's going out there and doing very well. So I think eventually it was just a matter of time to try to prove people wrong. The first time they're going to go, oh, actually that American kid's pretty good. Then the second time they see, then they don't care anymore. And it's just that guy's really good. And I guess maybe that's why it takes longer. But they also know how good American athletes are. And I think now that's starting to change for the better.
I want to ask you a little bit of a fun question here. During the movie, there's a segment in there where it talks about how hard it was just to eat, to get enough money to buy food, get enough money to buy groceries, and how you and Kieran, as being athletes, just eating up everything as quickly as you have it, basically. In that time period, you must have had to eat a lot of stuff you probably didn't like. What's the food you had to eat during that period of life that you just never want to see again?
Actually, I stopped eating a lot of spaghetti, but you'd be surprised how cheap some of these survival foods that athletes use are. And I was actually probably pretty fortunate that spaghetti and beans and stuff and those types of fuel are really cheap, because that was the case for us. I think it was, just that noodle spaghetti. I don't think I've had in a good few years, just mainly because of that. Not only in the quality of crap that you're buying, which is very low when you go to these budget food stores, but I would say that. But hey, again, that's what you need to do, and that kept us on the right road. And I guess that just made my engine perform that much better when I could actually afford to buy good food.
Somebody on Twitter, we put the fact that we're going to talk to you out on Twitter, had a couple people ask questions, and this is from Paul Freeland. He said, would Jay recommend kids follow his path and looking for a break in Europe, and is that necessary these days? I guess partly because MLS is obviously investing in development a lot more than they were back when you started, like with the Chicago Fire Premier.
Sure. I get asked that from time to time, and it's hard because, you only know your own path. But I also know that there are lots and lots of kids that aren't going to be drafted. The kids that, went to a D1 school and had a good college career, but there's only so many draft picks you get and so many expansion drafts and so many things and opportunities that will come along with the MLS. But over in Europe, because there is hundreds of professional teams, there's five professional leagues. There's, in Germany it's the same. Italy it's very similar. You look across the board in Europe, and your concentration of teams is going to be a little bit easier, but the logistics aren't exactly on your side. So I think it's just about it's all individually based. It depends what kind of person you are as well. It depends kind of what kind of adventure side you want to go and pursue. For me, that was my route, and I was excited to do it. It was a new challenge for me. It was something new, and I knew that I could probably, I did at the time have MLS tryouts. I could have gone, to some A-League tryouts as well. Now, for me, I looked at the long road ahead, and I thought either way I have to start at the bottom. But where is this light at the end of the tunnel brighter? And I just thought that England, having the opportunity through meeting Kieran and having a place to stay, and just having an adventure type bone in my body, just brought me to that decision. And again, it's hard for me to say go and do what I did, because I know how few and far between it actually works out. In the traditional way, we'll kind of weed things out maybe a little bit quicker, but for me, that was my way, and that was, and again, like I said earlier, I definitely wouldn't have it any other way.
Real quick, Jay, I'm a little confused as to whether or not any American kid can go and do what you did, or if there's like legal things involved. Did you have a status that allowed you to stay in England and trial like that, or in Europe in general, or was it didn't matter?
It didn't matter.
Okay.
Either way I was gonna make it work, and that's why in the beginning we traveled Germany, we went to Holland, we went to Belgium, and just trying to knock on doors. And again, that was all part of the fun for me, and because I already knew I was taking a huge risk, and so why not just keep throwing yourself out there and see what happens? And it's amazing how much you learn as well when you're on your own, and you learn to just depend on what you have and what you have in front of you, and not what mom and dad are saying, or not what coaches are supposed to be telling you, and all the rest of the things that come along with, I suppose, doing it your own way, which I kind of liked, because again, that suits my personality.
Let me ask you a different way. Did you have a work permit to be in Europe and doing this, or is that
not in the beginning?
Okay,
no, not in the beginning.
Okay,
I didn't know all the rules, but
that's part of the fun.
You find out pretty quick.
Wow. Okay. So by the time you were offered a contract by Watford, was that something that came up?
Yes. Yeah. By then I was I had to do all this. It's a nightmare, but I had to go through a bunch of different channels and sponsors and things like that, and passport offices and all the rest of that stuff. So there is ways, but they're not too fun. But a lot of the people that are coming over now are second generation
right.
Americans, so that helps too.
Right.
We had one other question from Twitter, and it was basically comes down to this: Hollywood, what they do these days is all they do is they remake other movies, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Footloose. There's no creativity in Hollywood anymore. So when your movie comes out and it blows up, and Hollywood wants to cash in on it somehow, and they decide to make a feature film about your story, who plays you, Jay?
This is one question that keeps coming up. And it's a hard answer. But I always just say that, well, since I know my story so well, I'm going to do the Eminem 8 Mile and just do it myself.
Fantastic. I think that'll work out well. Into talking about shifting away from the movie just for a second and talk about the way things are going for you right now. A year in Vancouver, some injury concerns. Is it a year or two? I've lost track. How is the process in Vancouver gone for you, and what do you see next for the Whitecaps? Is the playoffs possible next year?
Well, again, I think yes, definitely. Expansion years, as we kind of all know, are never really easy. I always knew what I signed up for in Vancouver, but for me, it was the right choice, and I still believe that. nobody said this year would be easy, and I think maybe winning our first game against Toronto, and we scored 4 goals, and everyone thought it was going to be this non-transition year, and then kind of injuries start to hit, and the right guys aren't on the field, and we're making coaches changes, and all of the rest of these things that come along with learning as a group, from a club down to the fans, down to the players. We did hit some bumps in the road, and it was a little bit frustrating at times. But anyone that's been up here to see games or have seen any of our games on TV know that this is a hotbed for soccer. Not only in the Pacific Northwest, which Seattle and Portland are hugely involved in, but Vancouver as well. I mean, we're averaging 20,000 a game in our first season, and half of a lot of Vancouver doesn't even know we are here until towards the end of the season. So we've just moved into a brand new stadium. Those types of intangibles that come with being a professional and in a professional environment, it's great. And I think we're all really excited for the future of the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now it's just up to us and the cohesiveness to try to make that consistency a little stronger now in our own performances as individuals, but as a club as well. And I think it was another really good learning experience for me. That's part of the reason why I was here. What's experience if you can't use it? And I had opportunities to stay in Europe and be a part of squads on bigger teams and things like that, and make a little bit more money. But for me, it was about the challenge and about being part of this something from the beginning. And Vancouver's been fantastic so far, as far as what I expected, and it's just been really challenging and will continue to be. And for me, that's what it's all about.
You guys have some great, exciting players up there. I mean, Astley, Chiamento, Camillo. There are some great, exciting players. I love watching the offense work in Vancouver. It just seems like there's 1 or 2 pieces away from having something really special up there. Real quick, let's talk about U.S. national team. If you're open to it, just wondering, any talk from Klinsmann yet? Any calls coming your way? Obviously, you're not done by any stretch of your mind in your mind at the international level. What's your plan? Is that something that you see hopefully coming back your way in the near future? I know you're coming back from injury. Has there been any talks yet between you and Klinsmann?
There hasn't been any talks, if I'm completely honest. But again, these are goals that will always be there, until you feel like you can't go and play at that level. That option for me is always open, and hopefully it still is. I know he's come out and said along the lines that you have to play 11 months a year if you're trying to play for the national team and all the rest of these things. But, ultimately, those types of things are up to him. I've had a fantastic run for the U.S. team. I achieved everything that I ever dreamed of for the U.S. team, and whether I deserve another shot is up to him and up to me, and whether I play continuously for the Whitecaps and show him that I can still play, because I believe I still can. And I suppose anyone that watched me play this year doesn't see too much of a difference in the play that I would have had at the World Cup. So, I'd like to think that I have the confidence to still be there and still am the player that I always have been. So, again, it's about changing his mind as well. So, again, I'll leave that up to him and leave my controllables up to me.
All right, Jay, you want us to give you one more 30-second burst to sell the movie, get people to go out this Thursday, November 3rd?
Yep, jaydemeritstory.com to find all the theater listings and screenings. If you follow people on Twitter, Jay Demerit Story Twitter, my Twitter as well. We're constantly retweeting updates and things, new theaters that have come about. But mainly it's through jaydemeritstory.com to find all the info you need.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us, Jay.
Okay, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. And again, we appreciate all the support we've gotten through this project. And we all know that never would have happened without the soccer community. And it's just been an amazing project to be a part of. And hopefully, this is just the beginning. And the soccer story will become even more popular, which is what it's all about.
All right, thanks. Make sure you get out to the theater on November 3rd. He said it was playing a week-long stint in certain places. I'm not sure that's the case in my local theater, but regardless, I know it's on November 3rd. So get out and see it. I mean, both Jared and I have gotten a chance to see. I got to see most of it. Jared saw the movie. It's good. I mean, it's a good story. Whether it's worth your time and effort to not only because it's a great story, but to support Jay and the idea that soccer movies can be successful, because we need more of those, right?
Even if you think you know his story,
Yes,
you're gonna learn
right.
something about. Like I've read all about it, and I've numerous times tried to learn more about it. Watched U.S. Soccer's coverage. I've read the write-ups that people have done about his story, and I still learned a lot by watching this movie. And it's just amazing to see the people that were involved in it. You hear about all the stuff he had to overcome. You get to see interviews with the people that were part of it, and just how odd it is that a guy that sleeps on a person's floor a year earlier, you're watching play in the EPL.
Right.
What 3 or 4 years after that?
Scores
It's just amazing to hear from all the people along the way.
Scores the goal to take Watford up. I mean, they won that game 3-0, but he scored the first goal, so that's the winning goal. All right, people, this is a special edition of the Best Soccer Show on the North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Please make sure you go to iTunes and give us some ratings and reviews. Those help a lot. If you like the show, you need to let us know and let the people know at iTunes or wherever. What else do I need to hit here? Email address?
Just let everyone know we still are going to have our regular Sunday show coming out on Monday. Look for our Monday audio podcast, and then Wednesday night or Thursday. We'll stay tuned for that with MLS playoffs this week.
Yes.
We don't know exactly what night our live show is going to be this week, but listen to the Sunday show, and we should be able to let you know then.
All right, everybody. Thanks very much for listening. We'll talk to you later.